Well, today may be the first day of April, which is marking the end of Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. But a local doctor, this guy right here, on a mission to get all of us to talk more about poop year-round. Yes, I said poop, which a lot of us don't say, especially on television news. So Dr. Gautam Mankaney, did I say that right?
You did.
Okay, he's here in the ARC Lounge this morning. He's a gastroenterologist with Virginia Mason Franciscan Health. Nice to have you with us this morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here, and thanks for talking about poop.
Yes, so why do we want to kind of normalize the use of that word in everyday life? What's the importance of talking about it and bringing it out into conversation?
Yeah, so I am here to talk about colon cancer,
Okay.
and that starts with symptoms in your gut. Right? And it can start with symptoms in your gut. People are shy to talk about poop.
Yes.
When you're shy to talk about poop, you don't go to the doctor, right?
Yeah.
But that's what we do, right? I talk about poop at home with my kids. I talk about poop at work. So be comfortable talking about it, and we're here to help you.
Yes, and I know that some people chuckle when when anybody says that word, and it's, hard to bring it up in conversations sometimes, but it really is important to bring a focus to it. So let's talk about what we can do to prevent colon cancer. I mean, are there everyday things that, steps that we can take throughout the day to help prevent it, especially if you're part of the younger population?
Yeah, great question. So the nice thing about colon cancer is if it's associated with being healthy, it probably prevents colon cancer. Okay. So what's like being healthy,
yeah,
right?
What do you mean by that?
Avoiding processed foods, avoiding lots of red meat. Now, everything in moderation is okay, right? I'm not saying cut out steak, but don't have steak every day.
Yeah.
Exercising, weight management, so eating fruits and vegetables. All that stuff is associated with being healthy. It helps prevent colon cancer.
Is there a certain point, and I'm approaching that age where I know, a colonoscopy and a stool test is probably in my future here in the next year or two. Is there a certain age at which somebody should get screened, and what type of screening should they get? Does it depend on the person or the history or what have you? What sort of requirements are for that?
So, glad you asked that. The age now is 45. Okay. It used to be 50. A lot of us have 50 in our head, but we've changed it to 45 because we're seeing a lot of young cancers. Now, what's the best test? The best test is the test you're going to do. Okay. I'm a GI doctor, a gastroenterologist. I do colonoscopies.
Yeah.
I would love for you to have a colonoscopy.
Yeah.
But if you don't want one and you want to do a different type of test, that's the test you should do.
And what's the difference between them? So for somebody who's never gone through a colonoscopy before, I've heard of the stories about the liquid that you have to drink and that sort of thing. What's the difference between that and a stool test, for example?
Yeah, so they're all looking at ways to diagnose cancer. A colonoscopy, think of it like a camera. You know when a plumber comes over and they look in your drains? A colonoscopy is a camera where you can actually look inside the colon and see what exactly is growing there. What a stool test is, or a poop test, is you sample part of your stool to look for blood that cancer may be shedding. And if you find it, it could hint towards cancer. I do want to make one big point here, though. A colonoscopy is the only test in which you can also diagnose pre-cancer. So polyps grow into cancer. With a colonoscopy, you see those polyps and you remove them. For the other tests, although they're good at diagnosing cancer, not at diagnosing polyps.
Okay, and once you have the test, is it a certain amount of years that pass before you need to have it again, or does that depend on like family history, that sort of thing?
Yes.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Yeah, so on everything. So if, let's just say you have no family history and your test is normal, depending on what test you do, we'll tell you when your next one should be. So a colonoscopy buys you 10 years, a stool test buys you 1 year.
Okay.
But if you have a family history, then we tailor those intervals for you, right? So if you have like a mom with colon cancer, we may say come back in 5 years.
Okay. Really quickly, I want to ask you, and I know we're short on time, but you had mentioned just a few moments ago that there's an increasing risk for younger people with this type of cancer, and I know we're expecting, I think, colon cancer to be the leading cause of cancer death for people under the age of 50 by 2030, which is not a lot of time until then. Why are we seeing that? Is there any reason for why we're seeing what we're seeing?
The honest answer is we don't know.
Okay.
But it is a worrisome thing, you know, and we're seeing rates of colon cancer go up because of this young group, right? And I think it's a combination of things. Perhaps changing risk factors. So the stuff we talked about,
yeah.
Young people are not as active, right? They're eating a lot more processed foods, changes in the environment, many of which are outside of our control. But it is a very real thing that we're seeing young people get more cancers.
Super concerning, and I appreciate you bringing a really important issue to our viewers. And let's talk more about poop.
Let's talk
right?
about poop. Yeah.
Let's do it. All right. Thank you, doctor. If you're curious about the risks of colon cancer, the Virginia Mason Franciscan Health website offers in-depth information about cancer prevention, screening, and therapy, some of the things that the doctor just mentioned. You can head to vmfh.org for access to those resources. You can also scan the QR code on your screen there. That will take you to our KOMO News Hot Links page, where we've made it an easy and link to their website for more information. So be sure to check that out maybe during the commercial break.